Hi John, and welcome to your swim therapy CD from your visit on the 9th of October 2012. During your visit, we looked at your front crawl and then had a very quick look at your breaststroke at the end. This was your first swim of the day, and we saw some interesting changes from your previous visit. You've clearly worked hard to get your body position better, and the head position is very, very good. So in terms of the rotation and height in the water and staying close to the surface is very, very good at the moment, and your feet tend to stay high up in the water. I'd like to see a little bit more kicking, and I think you did talk about that and say that as you get more comfortable in the water and warmed up, you do kick a little bit more, and it was just a little bit sparse at this point, and there's not a lot of kick. So again, focusing on just getting that kick going continually would be good, and give you a little bit more propulsion than you're currently getting. The biggest thing we looked at today was what the arms are doing, and you haven't talked too much about it. Matt did a little bit with you last time, holding on to a sinker out in front of you and doing some pull from there. And I changed the dynamics of that and changed it into the way I teach it is a rotation at the shoulder to get a high elbow and pull underneath the shoulder, pull underneath the elbow with the hand. And I'll pause this video here, and what we would do is I would be looking for a rotation in this part of the elbow here so that the hand comes underneath and then accelerates through towards the hip once you've got to a vertical position with the hand. It's not easy to achieve, and it uses a muscle called the rotator cuff muscle, and we looked at that today, and the first few goes you had at it, you really didn't quite get how to move the arm in that direction, which is again just because it's never been used before. But after a few goes at it, you really sort of got to grips with it, and we saw actually how useful it is, and we started to see some really, really big improvements in your arm pull. We started off just doing very basic movement of the rotation and the start of the pull, and we shouldn't be going past about this point. And again, we did talk about just remembering, even though you'd kind of thought it was slightly different, to keep the forearm and the hand in one line. So the hand shouldn't be bending away from the forearm like it is at this point, but not a huge problem. But it's something that I think you said you'd happily correct, and is quite an easy one to correct. So that's important. What we were seeing here really, really well is this was your first go at it, and actually the elbow was staying reasonably high and that hand going underneath, and we're getting close to that vertical position. So that shows already that you're starting to get an understanding of how this rotator cuff muscle works and what it's going to do. We then changed arms, and even though you're not so confident on your left arm, and you found during today's set that we had a few moments where you were really not happy with what was going on the left side, but I think after having a go on a swim on both sides, you started to gain a lot of confidence that actually there isn't a lot of difference between the two sides when you swim, and I do think you should be a lot happier than you are with the way it's going. When we look at this swim here, and you are in a reasonably good position, actually a lot of the time you rotate better on your left side than you do on your right. The hand isn't quite as good here. We can see the elbows dropped a long way from the surface, but overall it's a good starting point, and the left arm improved a lot during this set. We did talk about stretching, again just getting used to stretching a bit more, but what we're starting to see is at this point we're getting into a great position. We've let the elbow drop, but actually the next bit is very, very good, and you can see you're almost lifting the elbow back up to get to that vertical position, which is good, which is very, very good. And if you can just start the movement a little bit earlier and not let the elbow drop at the start, I think you see it happening quite naturally, and it did improve as we went through. The next stage of this is a single arm pull, and what we've got here is we split it down into two sections: the rotation and the pull down, and then the acceleration through to the hip. And what we see here is on the first one especially it was very, very good, but here we've lost the two stages. And when you even said to me that you got the two stages in your head, and that was what you were thinking about, and that's great. But what we should have seen is more rotation here, and the hand going underneath the elbow. The elbow shouldn't be moving, but you can see the elbow moving a huge amount, and then we're getting into that vertical arm position. So just a bit too late, and that's just again just thinking a bit better this time. You can see the elbows stayed a little bit better and got into a more horizontal position. If we look at this first one, you got it perfectly. So you can see elbows hardly moved, and we're just about into that horizontal position, vertical position, and then you're pulling through, and you can see this right angle at the arm. We should be able to keep the elbow, bring the elbow straight back forwards into position if we moved it forward from there. but just a little bit erratic at this stage in terms of keeping the elbow high and doing the two movements separately. Here we can see a later go at this, and I was really impressed with how hard you worked here, keeping the arm, forearm and hand in one line. You've got it into that vertical position and accelerated it through, and actually really close to the hip and body as well, and we've rotated all the way around nicely. That's a really impressive pull there, and if you can get that as a starting point, we'll start to see how good it really is. Again, dropped the hand too much there, but you actually corrected it and got back into the correct position. Again, we've kept the elbow high there and done a really good job. We just, again, don't let that wrist go, because the more you can get out of that habit, the better really. We finished off having a go at full stroke, focusing on just the right arm, and actually I thought you did a great job here. It's very, very difficult to go from that single arm into a simultaneous arm action where both arms are going at the same time, and there's a lot to think about, and the right arm in general did some really good pulls here, especially this first few, where here you've got the hand below the elbow really early. We have let the elbow go a little bit, and I'd like to see that elbow staying static around here for a bit longer as the hand comes underneath, and not just the hand. Again, we've lost that straight forearm to hand position, so we need to keep working on that, and I think the more you work on that for yourself, you've grasped everything very quickly today, so keep working on keeping that forearm and hand in one line, and I think that's the way forward with it. We finished off taking a look at your breaststroke very quickly, and the main things I talked to you about were not pulling quite as far back, and sorting out this kick. When you're doing the breaststroke kick, both feet should point out to the side, and it's very difficult to see here, but if we look at camera 3 specifically, we can see here one foot is pretty much flat, pointing down towards the bottom of the pool. The other's nicely turned out. They should both be doing the same thing, and at this point they are, but then this foot doesn't turn out quite as much and ends up almost kicking back straight, and you can see it at this point. The 2 feet are looking very different, so that's a big change. Using a pull buoy between the legs to start off with, and just making sure the knees stay close together, heels come up to the bottom, point the toes out to the side and whip round, will be a really good way of improving that. The arm pull we talked about is going just too far back. We shouldn't be going past this point. Okay, so where the shoulder and the elbow are in one line. If the elbow goes past the shoulder, we're over pulling, and we end up with a lack of timing on the stroke. But actually the height where you breathe and what you're doing overall is very good. So keep working on that, and I would suggest you work on the kick specifically, because 80% of the propulsion is going to come from there in breaststroke. Well done today, and I hope you enjoyed your visit to swim therapy. If you do have any questions, please feel free to email me and I'll get back to you as soon as possible.